Another player in a different set of circumstances is Odell Beckham, who goes from the Giants to the Browns. He's already talking up the arm strength of Baker Mayfield. I don't know if he's taking a shot at Eli Manning, but probably could be construed that way. But Beckham no longer on the Giants, now a member of the Browns after the big offseason trade. And can he be the same fantasy asset that he's been when healthy? Did not finish the last 2 years due to lower leg injuries. Last year missed the final 4 games. The previous year only played in 4 games. So what's the likelihood of Odell Beckham? Dave, you're pretty confident he's going to be a top 5 guy again. Yep. What are you basing that on going to Cleveland now?
Well, let's just start with his consistency. Ever since he's entered the NFL, he's been great for fantasy. Double-digit fantasy points in non-PPR, 18+ in full PPR, at least 2/3 of the time last year, and 62.5% of the time in his last 2 seasons combined. I think his numbers are going to be even better because he's got a better quarterback and he's in a better offense. And this is a situation where Odell Beckham can prove every single week that he's among the best players in the National Football League. I have a tough time deciding between him and Travis Kelce sometimes because Kelce's got that great position scarcity, but Odell Beckham's so consistent and so good. In PPR, he's worth taking toward the back end round one, especially if other owners drafting in front of you take receivers.
You do mean in terms of Kelce? Yeah, I look at Beckham as an early second-round pick. I just think that there are 5 guys that are slightly better than him. I do think that with Landry and Njoku and a strong run game and how Freddie Kitchens wants to operate, we talked about this Baker Mayfield, that the pass attempts came down and they were more focused on just winning games as opposed to putting on this highlight reel. Now, again, that was without Beckham, so we'll see how that sort of goes hand in hand, getting this new talent. But I just think there are a lot of mouths to feed in this offense. And while Beckham has a quarterback upgrade, he's never had this many talented players around him.
Well, and it's not just that. I think the whole scheme of the offense, he's averaged more than 10 targets per game over his career. Nobody was getting close to 10 targets per game in Cleveland last year, and I wouldn't expect that to change in 2019. So I think he'll be very good. He may be even more efficient than he's been in the past. And there's also the fact that he is probably someone you'd have to consider at least a little more of an injury risk than your average wide receiver. He's only played 16 games once. He's only played 15 games twice. So I do think there's a little bit of risk there compared to the other top 5 wide receivers.
I totally agree, but obviously, look, we're splitting hairs. 4th through 7th isn't exactly telling you he's a bad player, but that's why these guys.
Sure, but debating him versus Kelce is something that I think a lot of people.
I think it's more than Kelce. It's more about him versus Michael Thomas versus Julio Jones versus the top upper echelon of wide receivers. That's where the conversation I think is really more important, because if you're going to take Kelce, you're going to take Kelce. It's not a matter of who he's comparing him to. You're comparing him to that whole wide receiver grouping.